Well, here we are in Carterton, delighted to have stumbled across one of the co-leaders of the Green Party, a Cabinet Minister, James Shaw. So obviously, as part of the Extinction Rebellion Roadshow, we want to know where you stand on the Extinction Rebellion demands. Tell the truth, act on it, and the citizen, next step of democracy, Citizens' Assembly. So perhaps you could start by letting us know where you and the Greens stand on acknowledging that we are in a climate and ecological emergency.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I think that the work that Extinction Rebellion does is terrific, and we need people like you to do the work that you are doing, just to make sure that that message is still out there and to keep people's awareness up, even while we're getting through the COVID-19 crisis. Because one of my real concerns is that people are taking their eye off climate change because we've got this pandemic to deal with, and actually we need to kind of deal with both at the same time, because climate change isn't going away just because there's a pandemic on. First of all, we did lobby the government to declare a climate emergency because the Green Party does believe that we are in a climate crisis, and we do need to galvanise all of the resources of government towards climate action. We weren't successful in getting that over the line because we got blocked by New Zealand First, but we have taken considerable action on climate change in this term. I'm a big believer in telling the truth on climate change, so every chance I get, I talk about the state that things are at. But one of the primary jobs of the Climate Commission is to make sure that there is a sort of a politically independent, scientifically based group of experts, the job of which is to inform the public and to inform politicians about what the truth is around climate change and what we need to do about it. What was the rest of your question, sorry?
What you would do about it. So, we move on to, we've done tell the truth.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then we're thinking about acting on it.
Yes.
And the science is clear. I'm thinking of a 14-year-old in Devonport who said, the science is clear. She doesn't want to be another face for the politicians to look at and go, wow, there's the youth voice, isn't it wonderful? She wants you to act. And she says the mental health crisis that we have in our youth is because they're looking at the future and it looks terrible because of the climate and ecological crisis. So I'm wondering if you can address her and saying what you think needs to be done now if we follow the science.
Well, look, I completely agree with her. It is clear that the effects of climate change are already being felt around the world and here in Aotearoa as well. And of course, those will only get worse if we don't keep our foot on the accelerator of climate action. So in the last term of government, what we did was the really high level stuff. So getting through the Zero Carbon Act, the emissions trading reform, setting up the Climate Change Commission. We planted several 100 million trees, we've invested heavily in rail, we've built a hydrogen refuelling network around the country, we're rolling out charging stations for EVs, all of that kind of stuff. But actually in the next term of Parliament, and this is why I really want to make sure that we're back in government, is that we need to move from those really high level frameworks into working very closely with transport, industrial heat and agriculture to really rapidly decarbonise those sectors, because those are the three where you have the largest sources of emissions in New Zealand. And that's really what our program is all about at this election.
So the science says that we've got 10 years or less to turn things around. So what's your timescale?
Well, it is exactly that. So the IPCC has said that we need to decarbonise globally by 2050 and that about half of those emissions need to be gone within 10 years. So it's not gradual and then steep, it's steep, first, and we need to make radical cuts in our emissions over the course of the next decade. The biggest source of emissions, or the fastest growing part of emissions in New Zealand, is transport, where our transport emissions have been growing massively over the course of the last 30 years, and we really need to turn that around with some urgency. Fortunately, we now have the technology to do that, and that's one of my top priorities at this election.
One of the things that keeps striking me is that it's 40, 50 years since we started getting active in the environment movement. You know, Greenpeace started, Friends of the Earth started, World Wildlife Fund, so on and so forth. It's almost like we've been thwarted, like we were with smoking, with the vested interests really hijacking our democracy. I'm wondering how you see that democracy might be enhanced so that it stays in the hands of the people, representing the people and not representing vested interests.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think that vested interests have dramatically slowed down action on climate change over the course of the last, well, in particularly the last 30 years, when it started to become really commonly known what climate change was and what the sources of it were. I have to say, I think, and in part because of organisations like Extinction Rebellion, that is now turning. A really important part of helping to keep that momentum up was setting up the Climate Change Commission, which is politically independent and scientifically driven, and you know, we needed an institution like that because we were just getting into this endless debate about, does climate change exist? Is it caused by humans? How bad is it? Can you do anything about it? And actually, we need to move past that. But I do really like the call by Extinction Rebellion for a citizens' assembly to say, actually, why don't we get a group of people together who are outside Parliament but can inform Parliament about the kinds of things that we could do to drive down our emissions.
And I'm sure that we're calling for a Titiriti compliant citizens' assembly, and I'm sure you're aware of the work that's been done over the last 10 years by Māori around constitutional change. Yeah.
Yes, the Green Party has actually said that we want to take that work and actually implement it, and we're the only party in Parliament that's really talking about constitutional change.
Right, thank you. Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and wish you well in the rest of your election campaign. And we'll be doing our best to get people to think about the climate. We're very clear we're not saying how to vote, but might I say that we really need your voice in Parliament, and we'll be on the streets helping you with the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.